The following is a Spirit Street production.
All right, so Big 12 basketball last year was one of the best conferences in the country, if not the best conference in the country. We're adding 4 new teams. Now, Arizona State didn't have the greatest season last year. A lot of people thought they underachieved, but Bobby Hurley has been out on the recruiting trail and the transfer portal, hitting it hard, and looks like they could have a really good team this year. We will talk a little bit of Arizona State basketball today. This is the Big 12 Insiders.
Welcome to the Big 12 Insiders, your Big 12 sports show, presented by Synergy Financial Partners. Now let's go to booming North Texas, home of Studio 73. Here's your host, Brien Hanley.
All right, welcome everybody to Big 12 Insiders. This is Big B, Brien Hanley. Today we have got Chris Karpman, who covers Arizona State for 24/7 Sports. Chris, how are you doing today, my man?
Great, Brien. It's kind of hot, but we're used to that out here.
Right, absolutely. It is that time of the year. So let's just get into this real quick. You know, Arizona State did not have the best season as far as basketball-wise last year. I think a lot of people thought they were going to be a little bit better than what they actually were. I think Bobby Hurley, for him as a coach, a lot of people still remember him as a player, but him as a coach, it doesn't seem like a lot of things have gone great so far for him at Arizona State. What happened this past season?
Yeah, he had 3 really good years in a row that through the pandemic, but then things kind of fell apart in that 2021, 2022 kind of period. I think that they needed to figure out what they were doing from a recruiting standpoint, get their NIL game much improved, try to get better continuity. They've had too much roster turnover in recent years where they've lost a lot of their best players, Devin Cambridge, Warren Washington to Texas Tech, DJ Horn to NC State, and others. And so Hurley said he was going to redouble his efforts on NIL towards the end of this recent season, and he's managed to do that for sure.
Gotcha. Well, that's making a difference because, you're taking a look at what Arizona State has done as far as the recruiting trail, even getting guys to flip, from Arizona coming to Arizona State, not just your run-of-the-mill guys either, Chris, big-time basketball players, and getting guys in the transfer portal. Tell us a little bit about what's been going on with the recruiting and the transfer portal here in this offseason.
Yeah, exactly. So ASU lost Jemiah Neal and Frankie Collins to transfers. They were the 2 players that represented ASU at Pac-12 Media Day last year. But Bobby Hurley decided that he wanted to really overhaul almost his entire roster. There's only 2 of the team's top 7 or 8 players that are going to be back. Sean Phillips as a center, and then Adam Miller as a guard. And then Hurley went out and he added the top 2 high school recruits in any class in ASU basketball history. Jayden Quaintance, top 10 nationally, number 2 center, 5-star prospect, could have gone pretty much anywhere.
Right.
Ended up at ASU. And then the Arizona commitment that you mentioned, Josan Sanan, he flipped from the Wildcats when Caleb Love decided that he was going to return to Tucson for another year. And he's ranked 22nd, I think, nationally, number 5 shooting guard. So they've never had 2 top 25 guys in the modern era. And then to build around them, Hurley added, I think, 4 guys who are going to be in there either starting or top backups who are veteran, senior, junior, mid-major type guys that excelled at that level, all conference caliber players. And so the talent's going to be much upgraded from last year when he probably had his worst team due to a variety of factors. They just were so poor offensively, couldn't shoot the ball, didn't have a lot of chemistry because they were so new. It's going to be a new roster again, but one that I think is a lot more talented, a lot bigger, longer, more athletic up front, which will that is what you need to be able to have, obviously, in the Big 12. Hurley said, look, this is a grown man league, and you got to be able to have enough size, physicality, and athleticism up front to handle that. And he's gone out and done that. And ASU is going to have 4 or 5 guys who are 6'9" or taller who are going to be able to compete in that league.
Well, and that was just going to be what I was going to ask you about. Is it seems like Arizona State is ramping up because look, it's nothing against the Pac-12. The Pac-12 is a fine basketball conference, but if we're being realistic, the Big 12 is just a step up from that. You know, there's the last year where there were no nights off. Now, maybe that changes this season, but I just going from last season, there were no night where you just said this is a guaranteed win. I mean, even the last teams in the league, West Virginia, Kansas went there and lost. I mean, so there were no nights off in the conference. Adding 4 new teams in, I don't think there's going to be that big of a drop off, you know, especially the teams that are coming in. These programs aren't just terrible. I'm not saying they're top of the league, but coming into the Big 12, it seems like Bobby Hurley is saying we've got to ramp this up. Also, it might be because he needs to, because as we mentioned at the top of this, didn't go well this past year and the last couple of years. I'm thinking Bobby Hurley needs to make some noise here if he's going to stay at ASU.
100%. He knows he's on the hot seat. That's what everybody's going to say in the media. He had got an extension the year prior, so he's got 2 more years. But the reality is, you know, if you don't have 3 or 4 years on your existing deal, you're in danger. And he's, you know, 10 years into his career at ASU, and he's not had a top 30 Ken Palm finish or an NCAA net finish. 7 or 8 teams from the Big 12 were in the top 30 at the end of last season. It's a juggernaut. I saw John Rothstein, his Rothstein 45 preseason, the number 2, 3, 4, and 5 teams were all from the Big 12.
Yep.
So he's got to have a much better season than any season that he's had if he hopes to be on the NCAA tournament bubble, which I think would be the higher end aspirations of ASU this season, right? So when you have these 2 high impact 5-star additions, and then you're surrounding them with Phillips and Miller, who I mentioned earlier. ASU also has BJ Freeman. He was an all-conference player in Milwaukee last year, the leading scorer in his conference. Bashir Jihad, he's 6'9", puts the ball on the floor, can shoot it out to the stripe as a senior transfer. Alston Mason is a guard who's a double-figure scorer, and he has a chance to be a starter. So they got some guys. The talent is I think certainly better. The problem is the league is just such a juggernaut that there's no way they're going to be forecast to be in the top 8, I would say, of the Big 12. And they're probably going to have to overachieve to give themselves a chance this season. But yeah, he has really done a lot of work on his own in a void where ASU didn't have an athletic director, went through a lot of turmoil and problems in its department, trying to get some of these things sorted out. He went out on his own and connected with some of the most prominent boosters and some alternate, unorthodox sort of fundraising opportunities that drive NIL. And so now he's going to put at least a more talented, albeit perhaps somewhat young, with some of his top players type of a roster on the court.
Gotcha. Let me just ask you this, Chris, and I don't want to take up too much of your time today. You know, you've been doing this for a while. Looking at the Big 12 and the number of schools, number one, the number of schools that are just going to be in the conference itself, do you think with the amount of talent, like last year, early on, myself included, thought, okay, they're going to get 10 teams in. Well, they got 8. Do you think that the NCAA looks at this again and says, okay, this league is just tremendous? You know, there's going to be some eating of their own young here to try to get to the NCAA tournament. It's just the way that basketball or any league really works, you know, when it comes to this. Do you think they take that into account and they say, this league is so good, we got to put some more teams in? We can't just leave it at 8. We got to go to 9, 10, maybe even 11 teams.
Yeah, historically, we have seen that the best conferences are the only ones that have a chance to get teams into the tournament who are a few games below 500 in their conference, right? And that's the type of Big 12 that we're going to see this year, undoubtedly. It's just a matter of, I think subjectively, do you go with a phenomenal mid-major team that somehow lost its conference tournament
Right.
In the finals, but had 4 or 5 losses on a season? Or do you go with the third or fourth best conference, a team that's over 500 versus a team that's a few games under 500 in the Big 12? You're supposed to look at it irrespective of conferences, but I still find it hard to believe that everyone is thinking about the 10th or 11th Big 12 team from a comparable standpoint with, say, the 5th or 6th team in some of these other power conference leagues. That's a difficult thing. I don't know how you reconcile that exactly, and you're never going to be able to totally filter out the subjectivity when you're looking at all of these variables.
Right. A lot of it will come down to non-conference scheduling and what happens in the non-conference. How many of these, power conferences are going to play each other, in the non-con? That can get dicey too, because, you play a bunch of non-conference, tough games against Power 5 schools and you don't win all of them. Then you go to a league and then you're under 500 in your league. It's hard to justify that. So, but that's how some of this gets played out. I think the NCAA tournament, and for Arizona State, you're saying they may be on that fringe range. Last year, just looking at the tournament, they kept out a team like Indiana State. They won their conference. They had very few losses in the season. And they said, you know what? You're just not good enough. You're not as good as a Virginia, or you're just not as good as them. And we are not going to reward you. I think because they're going to do the same thing this year, Chris. The reason being is there's going to be teams like you mentioned, like Arizona State, and just other teams that are just going to be so good that they are going to look at it and say, look, they are better than that mid-major team. They're just better than them, or they're better than, we saw it in the Mountain West. They got all those teams in, and it didn't really look that good, come the second weekend when none were left. So they're going to say the same thing. Look, they're just better than them. I'm sorry. I know that you have a better record, but eyeball test at some point, Chris, like I said, you've been doing this a long time. Now, the NCAA can be crazy, don't get me wrong, but sometimes they just got to say, we know basketball. We see this. They're better than them. We're going to put them in the tournament.
I totally agree. I think there's also more pressure of leaving out a team that's from a major conference that went through a gauntlet of a schedule. The Mountain West, great example. A lot of people thought, oh, this is the year where a few of these teams are going to make a run and we're going to see a mid-major conference, and then it just totally was nothing. It was embarrassing. Right? And when you're coming off of that type of a year, that's also going to probably be in the minds of some of these people.
Absolutely.
In these versus seeing an NC State, right?
That's right.
Make a huge deep run and you go, they were battle tested. Of course, like they played against great teams. There's a lot of teams that are going to be in the 40s, 50s, 60s of the NCAA net rankings that nevertheless could run off 4 or 5 wins in a row against really good competition because of what they've been throughout the whole season. And Indiana State is not going to do that in the vast majority of cases. I agree. So I'm with you. I think that if you put these teams that we're talking about in those lower major to lower end of the mid-major conferences, they kick all those teams' butts, pretty consistently. They're just more talented. So I agree. I'm a believer in getting as many of those major conference teams into the field as possible. I think that's super exciting. People do love Cinderellas, of course, but the reality is you really need to be very careful, I think, about how you select those that aren't the automatic qualifier type teams. Hey, if you're at a lower level, you don't win your conference tournament, you can't blame anybody. You got to be able to do that. So, as we consolidate talent into some of these leagues, the Pac-12 now becoming, a one bid league, in all likelihood, or whatever it ends up being in the future, that this push probably even continues. So there are going to be some years where you get 10 Big 12 teams into the tournament or 11. And I personally think that's probably the way that it should be.
Right. Well, we saw that not that long ago. I remember the Big East. I mean, they got 11 teams in, and there was I guess an argument that you could have made. They could have gotten 13 teams in to the tournament that year. So I think that's what the Big 12 is going to be. The one thing I wanted to say and make sure that you understand, Chris, and Arizona State fans, the Big 12 is happy that you guys are here. I am happy to be able to cover and talk about the Big 12. I will be out in Vegas for Media Day, so I will be glad to get to meet you, shake your hand. I know I've kind of been sending emails and contacting people that way, but it's good to put, just face-to-face interaction. So I appreciate you taking the time to speak with us, and I'm definitely looking forward to meeting you.
Very much looking forward to meeting you and everybody else that I haven't had a chance to meet, who cover the Big 12 for 24/7 and otherwise. And it's going to be an exciting time. I think fans are very much looking forward to the type of big game environment and the passion that exists in the fan bases of the Big 12 and a lot of these college towns. That's something that I hear about very consistently from ASU fans. So the feeling is mutual.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again, Chris, for your time today. We're going to take one quick break before we end the show. So we appreciate you talking to us, and we'll have you back soon.
Thanks, Brien.
All right. We'll be right back from one word from our sponsor, Synergy Financial Partners.
We'll be right back after these messages from our sponsors.
At Synergy Financial Partners, the vision is to build the world's largest consumer financial education and empowerment company. Synergy doesn't just offer you a financial plan. At Synergy, the goal is to help you find your best financial future. Learn more at synergyfinancial.com.
Welcome back to the show. Let's return to Studio 73.
All right. Welcome back to Big 12 Insiders. Hey, one thing I wanted to say, number one, Chris is great. I love that Arizona State is in the Big 12 conference. It's going to be fun to cover them. I'm very interested to see what that basketball team is doing. If you guys haven't paid any attention, go check out who they've gotten. The number one with recruiting and the transfer portal. They should have a very, very talented basketball team this season. So they'll look very different what they did the previous season. But having said that, everybody, I am here to announce 1,000 subscribers. Yes, we got to that 1,000 subscribers. I'll be the first person to admit I am extremely humbled and grateful for everybody out there that has subscribed. Look, when we put this out there, I didn't think we were going to be able to get there. I thought it was going to take us a year. And I just said, Fitz, just plan on this being a year. It is what it is. But you know what? We basically started this in the middle of January, put our full force behind it February 1st, and here we are. It's June 12th, and we're at 1,000 subscribers. Now, to a lot of people, that may not mean a whole lot, or it may seem that it's taken a little while to get there. But you know what? For us, we've got so many different things going on for us to be able to put this together. And with your all support, more importantly, we will able to get there. So I challenge you guys to this. We're at 1,000. Let's get to 2,000 by the end of the season. Or better yet, let's try to get to 1,500 by football season. That's tough during the summer. I understand. But make sure, just tell everybody that you know, hey, go subscribe to Big 12 Insiders on YouTube, on 24/7 Sports. Make sure that everybody goes subscribe, like, comment. More importantly, hit the notification bell so you know when all the videos are coming out. Like I said, we're making some changes to make the channel better. We've listened to what you guys have had to say. So more, and come out and just leave comments, questions. And again, tomorrow is Big B Day. Ask Big B Day. We need your questions. So make sure that you guys do that. I appreciate everybody. Again, we hit that 1,000 mark. I am just so overjoyed and so happy and so just humbled by you guys by doing that. So I appreciate everybody out there. We will see you guys tomorrow.
This has been a GoPowercat.com and Spirit Street production. Please support this show by subscribing to this YouTube channel or follow us on your favorite podcast platform.